Oh, yeah, sure. I never noticed you wearing that. Yeah, I use. Don't wear it too often. All right, we're about to go live finally.
Oh, it's gonna work.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to edit it like real time because it's gonna be a little hokey.
Oh,
yeah. All right. Hello, everybody. We're finally live. Apologies for the technical difficulties. We've been trying to get on for almost 20 minutes now. Zoom was giving us some trouble. Then YouTube was giving us some trouble. So I had to finally get it on. So welcome to our Hunter Biden laptop discussion. We're going to be getting into a bunch of cool stuff today. Give the audience a little bit of taste what we got in store for them.
Well, we were setting up the regular batch of articles for our every couple day stream that we do, and found that there were so many on the Hunter Biden laptop that we might as well just do a one-off, as we tend to do sometimes when there's a sufficient amount of stuff to cover regarding one topic. So we put together New York Post, who seems to be a little upset, and they have every right to be, considering how they were treated when they first broke the story about the Hunter Biden laptop. Put together a wonderful piece about the 51 intelligence experts who refused to apologize for discrediting the true Hunter Biden story. Then you have other media pundits kind of getting exposed, like Brian Stelter, for example. There's also this MSNBC producer who is now kind of under the microscope. And we also, to cap it off, we have some hope that is coming out of this regarding the fact that there's never been any accountability for the media or the intelligence agencies who knowingly tried to convince everyone that this was false before the election.
So. Right. Excellent. Okay. So we've got a lot of great stuff. If you haven't already done so, go to the link in the description. Check out the promotion we have going on today. I've been trying to update everything behind the scenes as you give that introduction. So thanks, Ryan, for that.
My pleasure.
And, we have this situation where we're being inundated by radiation all the time. We're just bathing in the stuff.
Electrosmog.
Yeah. Electrosmog, from your smart meter, from your computer, from your TV, from your smart oven, all these various smart devices that are making us kind of stupid. So there's actually cool things you can get to help protect yourself. EMF Harmonized. We got an awesome promotion going on, 25% off. Go to the link in the description. Check that out. The sale ends today. So if you haven't already done so, get yourself something. You can actually get 10 different things and get 25% off the whole kit and caboodle. So that's what that is all about. All right, everybody. So let's go ahead and get into the first point we have for today.
It is the New York Post article that they, put out a couple days back about the 51 intelligence experts. So they're supposed to be nonpartisan, these spies, these CIA assets who tend to not infiltrate, but just become the media, essentially. And there is a list now compiled of at least 51 of these individuals. It came out in the New York Post on the 18th, and we're just going to kind of go over it a little bit here for our own purposes. So I believe what happened was the Post reached out to a lot of these individuals. And here's a quote from the article. Do the officials who tried to flip the 2020 election feel any regret for their actions? The Post reached out to those who signed the letter. Most would not answer the question. A few doubled down, including Clapper, big surprise, and have no remorse, no shame, and no apologies. So we're going to just go over some of these names. You have Mike Hayden, a former CIA director, now analyst for CNN, didn't respond. Jim Clapper, who we've been hearing about for years, former director of national intelligence, now CNN pundit, saying, yes, I stand by the statement made at the time, and would call attention to its fifth paragraph. I think sounding such cautionary note at the time was appropriate. It's kind of like, forgive me, instead of, it was okay that I didn't objectively cover it at the time because, it could have been so damaging to the guy I needed to get in office. Leon Panetta, former CIA director and defense secretary, now runs a public policy institute in California. He declined to comment. Yeah, John Brennan, former CIA director, who is an analyst for NBC and MSNBC, also didn't respond. Brennan was a big part of the whole early Trump days and, the attacks against him then, regardless of how you feel about Trump. Before Trump, there was still a corrupt government. So, and he was a big part of it. When you're the director of the CIA, that's a big red flag in my book anyway. Maybe you don't feel the same, but I digress. Thomas Fingar, former National Intelligence Council chair, now teaches at Stanford University. He didn't respond. You had Rick Leggett, another former National Security Agency deputy director, now a director at M&T Bank, didn't respond. And isn't it just so strange that these intelligence personnel end up in extremely powerful positions, like becoming an analyst on NBC and MSNBC, which has the biggest reach, some of the biggest reach in the country, and in a country that has more reach than any other country in the world. So these aren't just like small-time jobs. You have another former CIA acting director, Michael Morrell, who teaches at a university. You have Mike Vickers, former Defense Undersecretary for Intelligence, now board at Bay Systems. Doug Wise, former Defense Intelligence Agency Deputy Director, another one, teaching at University of New Mexico. And you often hear that colleges are indoctrination centers, and it's absolutely true. So a lot of the people don't consider the fact that a lot of these former CIA assets go on to teach at these universities, and they're not just teaching kids; they're teaching other teachers how to teach and what to teach. So you have Russ Travers, former National Counterterrorism Center acting director. Here's a quote from him. The letter explicitly stated that we didn't know if the emails were genuine, but that we were concerned about Russian disinformation efforts. I spent 25 years as a Soviet/Russian analyst. Given the context of what the Russians were doing at the time, which was proven to be false. I think he's referring to Spygate, Russiagate, and all that. And continue to do, Ukraine being just the latest example, I considered the cautionary warning to be prudent. That's going on the assumption, his words here, that all of the misinformation being reported in the West, which we have talked about many times on our show, is just 100% true. So it's funny blaming the Russians for misinformation when you are actively doing it yourself. That's all I'm saying. And that's regardless of whether or not the Russians are putting out disinformation. So you have Andy Lipman, former National Counterterrorism Center Deputy Director, saying, as far as I know, I do stand by the statement, but I'm kind of busy right now. So, people are going to play stupid about this whole thing. But the thing is, if Don Jr. had a laptop where he's, filmed in mid-coitus with people who seem pretty young and, all kinds of other compromising positions, there wouldn't have been a hesitation. Even if it was fake, they would have jumped on it with both feet. I'm just saying, that doesn't mean we're picking a side. We're just saying it's an objective fact that would have happened. I think we can all say that. Just considering how many stories that were proven later to be not true, like the P-tape, Stormy Daniels, etc., were just lambasted throughout the media. It was everywhere.
Clearly selective. I mean, that's what I was going to just say is that, these guys are arguing, well, we didn't know at the time, and we didn't want to accidentally manipulate the election by spreading rumors and whatnot. And yet, on the other side of the coin, 4 years earlier, they effectively took a glorified rumor and plastered it all over the media and did so multiple different times in multiple different ways. So the duplicity here is obvious, I would argue.
The wrap-up smear, right? It doesn't matter if it's true. Once it gets out there and it's leaked into everyone, and every major mainstream media outlet is receiving it in the 4 a.m. talking points, and it gets out there to everyone, whether or not it was true, it's in there. That's the first impression. Yeah,
that's right.
So you have another CIA chief of staff, John Mosman, who didn't respond. And again, to reiterate, this is a list of people who went on record saying that the Hunter Biden laptop was misinformation. New York Times came out a week ago saying, finally admitting, a year and a half after the fact, that it was indeed true. That's just an update for those who were unaware. You have Jeremy Bosch, former CIA chief of staff, now analyst at NBC and MSNBC, didn't respond. Rodney Snyder, former CIA chief of staff, didn't respond. Glenn Gerstel, former National Security Agency general counsel, didn't respond. David Priest, former CIA analyst and manager, said, "Thank you for reaching out. I have no further comment at this time." And the list goes on and on and on and on and on. And you can read it as you see fit, but we're just kind of giving you an example. These are all people, first of all, how heavily inundated our media is with CIA individuals and assets, and how none of them are willing to own up to their mistakes. So notable.
Right.
And what's funny is we got, when I say we, I mean Stillness, Underground Newswire, and all the people who work under us. Our Facebooks were deleted. It wasn't like we were banned. When we reported on this story, the New York Post reporting on Hunter Biden, everyone was deleted, just deleted. No warning, no shadow banning, no temporary restricted account shenanigans. It was just deleted. 11 years I had my Facebook full of stuff, just gone.
Same.
Not only that, but deplatformed, right?
Deplatformed. Yeah. I mean, in this world, having your Facebook removed is tantamount to like losing your access to share a resume. I mean, there's some employers that only use social media and Facebook to evaluate a person. So, we're quickly approaching a time, and this is part of the whole agenda, I would argue, where if you don't have access to big tech platforms and have the ability to have a digital profile, you can't function in society. For instance, this is something that isn't too well acknowledged today, but back before the introduction of social security numbers, which I believe happened in the 1930s, there was no, social security number. But within X amount of time, I'm not quite sure, but certainly after about 50 years, if you didn't have a social security number, it was effectively like you didn't exist and you had no rights as a citizen. So, keep all this stuff in mind. When we use various official systems to take over certain aspects of society that we used to use common sense for, we're in a situation where it can be easily manipulated by authoritarians.
Yeah, and it wasn't just the social medias either. I think it was demonetized, right?
Exactly.
Certain ad platforms that we relied on to pay the employees dropped us. So
now I wanted to share this video. This is actually a video that we had put in a script or a video we put out a few months ago. It was actually in 2021. I can't remember the video specifically, but this is Operation Mockingbird. So we've heard and known for several years now that CIA has been working with US media for a very long time, and supposedly the program ended. But if you actually look at the behavior, it certainly has not ended because of what we just saw, certainly, but many other instances. There's a clip out there also of like, I forget what the instance was. It was something about how we have to protect our democracy and be very careful of fake news. And it's just like literally dozens of local media outlets all reading the exact same script.
The exact same word for word.
Yeah.
And that's what happens. A lot of people don't know about the 4 a.m. talking points that go through to all. It doesn't matter if it's Fox, doesn't matter, you know what I mean? And even us, we get all of our information from an RSS feed.
Right.
Which admittedly we get to pick and choose what we like and what don't like, what we want to report on. But these people in mainstream, they don't have to do their job. They don't have to do actual journalism. They just disseminate what other people, largely intelligence agency assets, have already prepared for them.
That's right. Let's take a listen to this clip here. This is Frank Church, who's a senator that broke the story or the news that the CIA was essentially handing media outlets exactly what to tell the American people.
That it was a matter of real concern that planted stories intended to serve a national purpose abroad came home and were circulated here and believed here, because this would mean that the CIA could manipulate the news in the United States by channeling it through some foreign country. And we're looking at that very carefully.
Do you have any people being paid by the CIA who are contributing to a major circulation American journal?
We do have people who submit pieces to American journals.
Do you have any people paid by the CIA who are working for television networks?
This, I think, gets into the kind of getting into the details, Mr. Chairman, that I'd like to get into in executive session.
There you have it. I'll let you guys watch that clip. I'll pop it into the description.
It's basically an admission.
Yeah, exactly. It's an admission that the CIA has been manipulating public opinion using the media, reaching all the way back until 1975, at the very least, probably way before then. So keep
I
all
love
that in
how
mind.
everybody in that video sounded like William Burroughs.
I know, right? All right. Well, with that, let's get to the next one.
So let's get into some bigger examples of individuals. I mean, I don't know if he's an intelligence asset. I don't think he has much intelligence at all. But CNN's Brian Stelter had an epic meltdown in a series of texts. It wasn't like this was a video or anything. But he refuses to admit he lied about the Hunter Biden laptop, even when presented with video evidence of himself admitting those things.
Wow.
So we have that in text, but we also have the evidence in video form. We'll show you a clip here in a second. Actually, let's just go straight to it. The clip is in the text there,
Right here.
or the tweet rather.
Biden's secret emails.
A really fishy story.
The Post claimed that the emails were found on a laptop computer that was brought to a repair shop in Delaware in the spring of 2019.
The FBI is now investigating whether those alleged Hunter Biden emails are actually connected to a larger foreign intelligence operation.
They may be related to a foreign intelligence operation.
Foreign intelligence operation.
Foreign intelligence.
Foreign intelligence.
Foreign intelligence operation.
For all we know, these emails are made up.
The information found on the laptop may be part of a Russian disinformation campaign.
Part of a Russian disinformation effort.
Described by many intelligence experts as having hallmarks,
All the hallmarks,
All the hallmarks of a Russian
Russian disinformation.
Russian disinformation.
disinformation campaign.
This is a classic example of the right-wing media machine.
There's the original, coverage that we all heard.
So there it is. That's national television. I mean, you're not going to eliminate this video from the internet. Anyway, and he is damning screenshots from a conversation between Stelter and a writer for Breitbart reveal how the thin-skinned CNN host reacts when he appears to have his back against the wall. CNN, Brian Stelter appears to leave the conversation offering no response to the question about his involvement in the possible cover-up, given his close relationship to the disgraced former CNN president, Jeff Zucker, who was found to be, actively covering things up. So here is a clip or a screenshot of the text. Hey, just curious, when did I claim Hunter Biden laptop emails were likely Russian propaganda? To which the Breitbart guy sends him the video we just watched,
Right.
And says, glad to see you're reading Breitbart. Do you stand by your claim that these emails may have been made up and you use the phrase Russian disinformation on your show to describe them? Do you stand by that? Or are you retracting those comments you made on your show? And, some people get triggered when they hear Breitbart, whatever. Just think about this from like the perspective of what it is,
Mm-hmm.
So to which Brian Stelter responds, so you clearly can't back up your assertion that I claimed Hunter Biden's laptop emails were likely Russian propaganda. Thanks for confirming that what you wrote is false.
Mind you, there's a video of what we just watched that was just shared.
It's like someone says, show me the evidence. You show them the evidence, and then they're like, guess you didn't have any.
That's like, what are you
mean?
talking about?
The evidence is right there for everyone to see. And I like what he says in response to that. I just confirmed that what I wrote is absolutely correct. We consider all of your answers here on the record and are preparing a follow-up story on you. Are you saying you did not say that Hunter's emails were Russian disinformation and were possibly made up? Do you stand by those statements you made on your show, or do you retract them now? And I think it's funny that he mentions that we're in the process of making an article about it. And that's when he just stops responding.
Mm-hmm. So that's essentially it. Yeah.
This guy, I don't know. You can just see when you watch. I mean, maybe I should not go there. When I watch Brian Stelter, he comes off as someone who's very self-absorbed, has this image that he wants to put out into the world. And, he seems to me more like, instead of a nefarious intelligent asset, he's just kind of a useful idiot where, he's full of himself. He thinks he's on the right side of history and can't even conceive that this story was, real, essentially.
Well, you can speak psychologically to this a little bit. So there is a definitive difference between somebody who knows the truth and has the evidence to back it up in their own mind space and believes that evidence is true, and somebody who's just going off of what they've been told and hopes that it's true. So when you confront somebody and they're like, hey, you said you took out the trash. Did you actually take out the trash? And like, yeah, I definitely took out the trash because I got a memory in my mind of actually doing it. there's a whole different level of body language behavior. And often you just address the claim very directly. When you're dealing with somebody who is either straight up lying or somebody who is trying to essentially cover for somebody else and they don't actually know, that's when you get the hand waving. That's when you get the believe me eyes. That's when you get the overreacting and the emotional or incredulity response that is often an attempt to defend and cover up the fact that you don't know. And in this case, Brian Stelter didn't know. Now, is he lying? Certainly possible. Like we were talking about earlier, we don't necessarily know if Stelter is an open deceiver or if he's just being played himself. What I can tell you is that a lot of people in general are what we could call conceptual authoritarians. They're going off of what they believe to be true, but they don't actually know why. And there's challenges associated with that. I mean, let's face it, you can't be everywhere all the time. So there's certain things you just have to take for granted. But the difference is that when you recognize, hey, I should have a reasonable doubt in this because I didn't see it myself, like in Brian Stelter's case, he could have been like, hey, I have this thing called journalistic integrity. I have intellectual integrity. I have epistemological integrity. And I say, you know what? I didn't know if that story was true or not, but this is what I was told. So, if in that situation, you're admitting that it's essentially information you were reported to, but you didn't know for sure, then at least you can maintain your intellectual integrity. But he didn't do that. So speaks for itself as far as his character is concerned, I would argue. So what else do we got in this Hunter Biden laptop shenanigans?
Well, Brian Stelter wasn't the only one. And that list of 51 Intel media assets also aren't the only one. We have a prolific producer over at MSNBC, one of their more prominent ones anyway, also spread misinformation to cover up for Hunter Biden. So as the Hunter Biden laptop story comes back into the national spotlight after the New York Times finally acknowledged the laptop's legitimacy, a prominent MSNBC producer has been revealed to have previously stood by Facebook's censoring of the story, saying it's, quote, a disputed report containing, quote, disinformation. How come they didn't wait and hold the presses, when the Stormy Daniels thing was happening, the P-tapes were happening, all of this other stuff that proved to actually be fake was just leaked out before any kind of, authentication process happened. And it was quite the opposite with Hunter Biden. It was released for everyone to see. In the press, we call it going nuclear. It's bigger than a bombshell. Every outlet on the planet has access to this stuff. And if you so are inclined, you can go in and look at the files yourself. I did that with some of the stuff. It was all pretty, degenerate behavior, right, which, is neither here nor there. But the stuff that's really interesting is emails about Burisma, the Ukraine things, cutting in the big guy, all that stuff you probably heard plenty. But yeah, so you have this producer who is claiming it's a disputed report and standing by the fact that Facebook censored people. I would say not only did they censor people, but they systematically deleted accounts without warning. So
it did not restore some of them in a lot of cases.
Yeah, we'll never get our accounts back, I doubt. And I guess I don't care anymore at this point. It's been so long. In the lead up to the election on October 14th, 2020, shortly after the New York Post published their initial reporting on the laptop, Kyle Griffin, an executive producer at MSNBC, tweeted out in support of Facebook's censorship of the bombshell story. Here is a picture of the tweet itself. The Trump campaign claims Facebook is, quote, censoring journalism because Facebook plans to limit the spread of the New York Post report. That is not censorship. Facebook is under no obligation to allow a disputed report that appears to contain disinformation to spread on their platform.
Actually, he's wrong. According to Section 230, they absolutely are not obligated to, or they are obligated to let the information go out because supposedly they're not a publisher.
Oh, but doesn't their terms of service kind of like circumvent that or no?
Well, it tries to, and this is the whole point. It's, I'm kind of glossing over an issue to make a point, being a little hyperbolic. Facebook is a corporation that has terms of service, and by those terms of service, they give themselves permission to do these things. But the immunity they have as a service provider, as opposed to a publisher, so that they can't be sued, specifically states that they can't pick and choose what can and cannot go on the platform. Just like the phone company can't decide, you can't use the F word when you're talking to your friend over the phone. So this in substance, in the substance of the agreement, the spirit of the agreement that gives them the ability to do what they do, they should not be doing any type of banning of any information whatsoever. But obviously they do it per their terms of service. And that's an enforcement issue. A failure to enforce is what is the law on the United States side. So there you go.
There it is. So yeah, the New York Post story has resurfaced because of the New York Times finally admitting to it. The acknowledgement of the laptop by the major paper appeared to fall on deaf ears, as we've seen all of these intelligence officials refusing to comment or apologize. In a White House press conference last week, Biden press secretary Jen Psaki, who had dismissed the story as Russian disinfo, was grilled over her assessment. In response to numerous questions, Psaki pointed reporters towards the Department of Justice and representatives of Biden's son, saying, "I'm a spokesperson for the United States, and he doesn't work for the United States." Mm-hmm. So why didn't you just stay out of it back when the story broke?
So I was just thinking,
if that's your stance, you know what I'm saying? So there's that. There is some hope coming down the pike here. Hopefully, maybe, at least there's an attempt at some hope. We have a lawmaker calling for a full investigation into collusion between big tech, the mainstream media, and the Democratic industrial complex. So let's get to it. You have some tweets here. I think this one by Trump is worth showing, just to remind people of what happened when Trump was on 60 Minutes, was it? Or Face the Nation? I think it was Face the Nation.
Face the Nation, okay.
Leslie,
And you think it's the biggest issue to campaign on?
I think it's one of the biggest scandals I've ever seen, and you don't cover it. You want to talk about?
Well, because it can't be verified.
You want to talk about insignificant things.
I'm telling you.
Of course it can be verified. Excuse me, they found the laptop. Leslie.
Can't be verified.
What can't be verified?
The laptop.
Why do you say that?
Because
even the family hasn't. The family on the laptop. He's gone into hiding for 5 days. He's gone into hiding.
He's preparing for your debate.
Oh, it's taken him 5 days to prepare. I doubt it. Okay.
All right. So let's get back to the main point.
So there's that. And then you have Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey admits they don't have any evidence to say the New York Post Biden story is disinformation. That's an admission right there.
Definitely, yep.
But they still did it. You know, they still censored it. Mm-hmm. Sorry, we got our dog. He's demanding to let out.
Go ahead.
Then you had Jen Psaki. A lot of people have seen this tweet recently, where she is saying it's confirmed by Intel officials. Well, all those 51 Intel officials were wrong, we found out. And then we have a clip from one of the best debates I'd ever seen on public television, which we should probably at least play a little bit here just to remind everyone what happened during that debate.
All right, let's see here. This one?
Yeah, it should pick up at something like 7 or 6 minutes.
7 or 6 minutes.
Just hit play. It should pick up right there.
I'm anxious to see this take place. The character of the country is on the ballot. Our character is on the ballot. Look at us closely.
Let me ask some follow-up. Please respond, and then we're going to have follow-up.
If this stuff is true about Russia, Ukraine, China, other countries, Iraq, if this is true, then he's a corrupt politician.
Right.
So don't give me the stuff about how you're this innocent baby. Joe, they're calling you a corrupt politician.
Nobody.
Hey, President Trump, I want to stay on the issue of race. We're talking about the issue.
From hell.
President Trump, we're talking about race right now, and I do want to stay on the issue of race. President Trump,
I have to respond to that.
Please,
because look,
very quick.
There are 50 former national intelligence folks who said that what he's accusing me of is a Russian plan. They have said that this has all the 5 former heads of the CIA, both parties say what he's saying is a bunch of garbage. Nobody believes it except his and his good friend Rudy Giuliani.
You mean the laptop is now another Russia hoax?
That's exactly what.
This is where he's going. The laptop is Russia.
Gentlemen, I want to stay on the issue of race.
You have to be kidding. Here we go again with Russia.
Oh, God, that's great.
Yeah, so there is good news. We have Representative Daryl Issa of California sees the collusion between big tech and the legacy media and the Democrat industrial complex. to cast suspicion and even hide the story as a real election interference. And many of us do as well. He has called for Congress to initiate an investigation. Here's the tweet. Tonight, I'm calling for a congressional investigation into how big tech, the mainstream media, and the Democrat industrial complex colluded to suppress the Hunter Biden scandals. I think that Nancy Pelosi would rather stick needles in her eye than open an investigation, but chances that the Republicans will take control of Congress in January are excellent, and this may well be the first order of business. So we'll see what happens there. I haven't seen any developments from that yet. Maybe there are, maybe there aren't. Wouldn't be surprised if this call to Congress just falls on deaf ears. We know Congress is not in a great state right now, but if the midterm elections aren't completely rigged, there's going to be a reckoning next year.
Right.
Some things to look forward to, and there's probably going to be more coming out on this as time goes on. I'm glad to see it's back in the media where it should be.
Exactly. And, the good news is, despite the fact that we might actually see justice on the part of the media and all these other people, and we'll probably have malfeasance and lack of duty and negligence, and that's the word I'm looking for, negligence with respect to Congress, it's all helping to prove to people who are watching that the media cannot be trusted. And that is certainly a victory.
Yeah. And thanks for our audience. Got a lot of friends out there watching, sharing this information. Thank you, April. Thank you, everybody. Joe Notion, all the people who have, donated and all of that. Couldn't do it without you folks.
Absolutely. Well, we have this one last story here from Joe Rogan. You want to play that one?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We have I completely skipped this. This is great. He had a guy who is former CIA asset. I don't know much about this guy. I do know that he has a private intelligence company. So he's talking to this guy, and they mentioned the laptop. So it's interesting to see what you have all these CIA assets in the media, doing cover or just neglecting to comment. And then you have this guy who's no longer with the CIA and actually has his own private intelligence company. He talks about it. So let's play the clip.
They love a good story.
They don't just love a good story. They love a narrative, and they're willing to ignore facts to push that narrative. That's what scares me. What scares me is, I think there are objective journalists that work for the Washington Post and the New York Times, and there's real solid journalists out there. But I don't necessarily know if you're getting all the information. I think it's safe to say that
you're not sure.
Some fuckery is afoot. I mean, the New York Times just now is admitting that the Hunter Biden laptop is real. And, we remember from the debates with Trump bringing it up to Biden and Biden saying it's bullshit and it was a lie, a flat out lie. Yeah. Everybody knew it was a lie. The New York Post had that story that was banned from Twitter, which was just outright crazy, that one of the oldest newspapers in the country.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody's going to go back and apologize to them.
No one's apologizing.
But
right?
there's a dynamic here that I love this topic in a sense, not so much because of whatever the fuck Hunter was up to, but in part because now when you look at the liberal Dems and the progressives, it doesn't matter to them. If you read some of the narrative that is out there now, the social media in the past day or so, ever since the New York Times came out with this, they're just dismissive of it.
Yeah.
Right? And they don't care, or they're willing to overlook it, which is the same thing they accuse the right of doing. Both sides. We've talked about this before, but both sides are just so
both
fucked
sides
up.
are so fucking crazy. They're both so crazy.
It's which does leave you with the question of, well, where do we go with that? But the Russia-Ukraine situation has created an interesting dynamic in DC where you've got sort of this weird thing.
There you have it, folks. As more stuff comes out, we'll report on it. But it's good to know that this is back in the media and that we are justified in the stuff we reported on and were subsequently deplatformed and demonetized for.
Right. And as he was saying, I don't think we're going to see any apologies coming soon. I don't think we'll see any damage checks or awards like that handed to people who had their reputation smeared.
Yeah.
But, all of this is the big buildup. The sleeping giant is awakening. More and more people are getting wise to the corruption that we had that has been hidden for so long. and it's going to reach a breaking point, and that is definitely good news. So with that, thank you so much for watching, everybody. If you haven't already done so, we could definitely appreciate your support. Go to stillnesssandstorm.com/donate to support our work, one-time or recurring donations. And we'll see you next time on Vigilant News.